How's everybody doing? Anybody who is here? Wonderful to see you. Wonderful to be here. Wonderful, wonderful. I'm going to be doing another quick one here. This one here is going to be a little bit on the topic of what I was talking about before, which what I was talking about before was the future design of vehicles around us today. So transportation. So let's put up here F-U-T-U-R-E, future. Let's just put transportation, Transportation. Yeah, I'm spelling. I'm spanning. Cool. So here we go. Images. Okay, so they're looking at a lot of different ideas. If you really, you go look at Google, and that's where you're going to be finding all the little wacky ideas that are going to be popping up. So a lot of these ideas are, it looks like a hovering style vehicle, probably going to be magnetic. Could these vehicles float pods in the future? Yeah. I bet you they're going to be kind of a basic magnetic idea. I like the ones that are going to be up over here in the top corner, which are the yellow transportation pods. Multi-passenger style setups that I like as well. Some of these things get a little wacky. I like the pods, things that are going to be more ubiquitous to the entirety of everything instead of just one person getting their own. I like the way this looksies type thing. It shouldn't. We have too many people on this planet to have your own individuality in such a way that they're going to have to create X amount of vehicles in hopes you buy one of, or X amount of them. That's just a bad model right now. We're wasting too much. There's landfills full of products that didn't sell, and that's kind of my whole problem with what's going on right now. And it's kind of I have a problem with going into stores where you're going to be looking at products sitting inside of landfills in the future. If they don't sell fast enough, iPods to things like that, they didn't sell, so they went into landfills. Those are bad idea models that made it into the product line in such a way that now we're dealing with just hordes and hordes of stuff. So on my channel, what I want to do is I want to look at some of these ideas and start thinking, what's the future in store for us right now? So if we're going to be looking at these right here, we look at all different kinds of ideas, pods, mass transportation of people through, let's say, transit lines. I see single car things that look all wacky, flying vehicles. But here's the problem with flying vehicles. Flying vehicles, I was thinking about it earlier as I was talking about it. Flying vehicles are going to be one of those things where they're not bad. They're going to work. Hold on, everybody. I'm sorry. I'm going to get my little kombucha here. They're going to work. It's just we have to get ourselves regulated first, because there is going to be places that the government's not going to want us to go to. Everyone hates talking about it, like, oh, secret. Well, everyone knows this, but at the same time, we don't understand that that's going to have to be a path or a pattern we're going to either accept and drive, like a freeway. You're not allowed to just drive off the freeway. Everyone knows that. The people that we see goofing off and driving down the sides whenever we have traffic are people that you're like, dude, that guy or that person's a crazy person doing that. So if we have it set up to our rules of that nature, but flying allows for a lot more anonymity that we don't want to discuss, more or less. So what I'm thinking of is I'm looking more or less along the lines of what is our, this was me earlier today, what is our vehicle of the future going to be? So our vehicle of the future is going to be something that is going to probably be your home as well. If you do have the ability to be very mobile. When I say very mobile, I mean as mobile to say, hey, your project this week is to go with your parents to another country and look into their antique lifestyle, like Egypt and the places in South America and other places that are accepted. That would be a learning experience for, of course, everybody in the family, let alone a doable entity. And if people are going to be able to do stuff like we're learning right here, right now, due to what is going on with us, we are going to, through this situation that's happening right now amongst everybody. You know, we're all in our houses. They're calling it, you know, kind of a, it's a it's a keep it's to keep society active. It's a tough thing to do. I can only imagine anyone who has to do this is in a position that is not full of happiness on every angle. There's going to be people who are going to be ticked about certain things. So with this, I'm looking to say I want to take people on a journey of what is the future going to be? Can we be autonomous like we are in our homes working? I think we can. I think a lot of the stuff that we do is going to be a lot more. I'm at work right now. Here I am, sit in front of your camera. Your camera, every time you're there in front of it, is going to be you working. If that's the kind of job that you have, that's the kind of way it's going to be for work. Now, when it comes to the future transportation, I do believe that there's going to be many different kinds of situations that we're going to have to be dealing with. Some of these are going to be, how can I say? Some of these are going to be along the lines of hyper city style living. Should be more along the lines of what we're going to classify these things as. And I think along the hyper routes, you're going to have smaller style cities, and that's about it. Because other than that, there are a lot of things in humanity that need to probably be lightly pruned in order for this planet to not just be just a tumbleweed in 1,000 years. So if we want to make sure that we have a future for the future, there is going to have to be some ideas of what can we do in mass conglomeration. There's a lot of people who'd rather live that way. There's going to be the smaller rural style cities, which would probably still be considered a larger style city, like a Riverside County style city setup, where there's going to be cities where people are going to be doing things on the outer edges of our human domain, which if we do this properly, I can also conceive that we're probably going to cut down our human domain quite a bit in the sake of saying, I think that we can be doing this so that way there's going to be larger city setups where we can actually say, hey, there's going to be groups of, this is the working force. The working force tends to be very this kind of people. It is the way it is. I mean, when I was in my working conditions, most people I ran into were about the same. Lightly conservative, for the most part. You work with your hands. Tend to be a little more on the conservative side. Seems to me that I've seen. And of course, there are those who tend to be a little academic thinking, a little bit more outwardly saying, you know, I see the generalization of things. If you're working, you tend to be thinking about what's happening from day to day to day, because you're going to be building something, making something, creating something. It's just going to be a day-to-day process. People who are going to be more in the academic world are going to be looking more at the conceptual idea, and I think each one of those is going to have their own ism along with it, which is going to be a major portion of the society, which is going to be a major portion of, let's just say, transportation. Once again, I'm getting back to my original topic, which is what is the vehicle of the future, the flying vehicle right now. So I've been creating it, and I wanted to go on my idea of saying, I'm going to open up myself another layer, and this one's just going to be aircraft. We're just going to start. I'm going to think, okay, so how are we going to essentially, what's the evolution of these vehicles coming up right now? Because there's going to be an evolution, and I can only conceive it as, like I said, for the most part, you're going to have a lot of people who are going to want to have their little speedway flyers, my little I'm going to go fast vehicle type things, almost for the most part. And I don't know, for the most part, I can conceive two different kinds of setups. Let's just say a power supply can be the size of an engine. Let's just say this engine will allow for you to have mobility in three-dimensional space. So if you were to have this engine, I would want to have something in the front. And if I was to be in three-dimensional space, want to have something in the back, at least two of these propulsion units. Course set into some sort of a chassis. Now, I'm only guessing the chassis for this is going to be some sort of a gimbal setup. So it's going to have a weird little gimbal-y setup on the outside edges of this thing to allow for this to let you move into three-dimensional space. So that way, if you're going to be taking off with this, you're going to want to have an engine in the front and an engine in the back, so it can move you as a human being inside of this vehicle freely enough to not feel like you're getting just super torqued out. So if you want to go up, you don't want to just slam you in your seat like an elevator. You want to move with where your body feels like you should be feeling the pressure, which is sometimes at the front of you. So for a comfortable journey, you're going to want to be moving like a normal plane would move. But this thing would probably have the ability to move you in three-dimensional space pretty weirdly. But for the most part, set it under proper parameters, you're going to be able to move this thing in a movement space. That's the way I'm looking at these engines. These engines are three-dimensional engines. So what's going to... I know people are going to be like, yeah, it doesn't exist. Well, we'll talk about that later. So, gimbals to run these chassis, and then you'd have your cab space, vehicle, you'd have all your mechanics. You'd have probably something on the top that's going to be some sort of sensing unit. You're probably going to have something underneath this. I'm trying to think how it would even be. Like, wheels don't exist, so you can bring that pretty close to the ground to where that way you can have landing gear that can stub out from front to back. So if you're going to look at it from the front, it can have a real car shape to it. Front of the vehicle, and it can kind of go up. You'd have the engine sitting kind of somewhere in this zone underneath. Boom. So it can just kind of have a real oblong jelly bean shape with, give it 4 little landing pods on it. So if you're looking at the front of this right here, so you're looking straight down the front on this view, and this one here is going to be your side view. You can have your entries, your exits. You can have your engines even exposed if needs be. I don't know how this is going to look. But once again, I'm going to look at it and say eventually people are going to realize, okay, this is going to be able to get me from here to here before I need to refuel it. And then once they get far enough, they're going to want to say, hey, it sure would be nice if I could be able to sleep in this thing to go even further. Because this can get me into any weird spot I want. I can land in any place to keep going. I mean, this thing can land in the middle of a desert. Why not? If charging is nothing more than opening up solar panels and charging some sort of battery bank on this thing, or whatever it would need, that would be where this thing can land. So, to be honest, you would almost want to land it in a place where it would get maximum amount of sun. Why not be a desert, for Pete's sake? So this thing can land anywhere it needs to, top of the mountain, anywhere. Technically. When I say technically, I only mean that in the fact that whatever the FAA would allow, which would be the ability for you to go to a place, because you don't want to have these things all over the place, infecting even more of a wonderful world with us now that we can reach anywhere. And we wouldn't want to be just trashing any place that we can land, too. So, some of these places are going to have stuff that we haven't even really been able to... We're going to be able to take these things into places that most people haven't been able to go eventually. So once again, we're going to have people being able to land in areas we haven't been able to really look at as scientific and say, should we be putting our feet right here, right now? So I say, you can have a dual engine. I'd still say the best layout, if you're going to look from the top, would be a triple engine setup of this nature. Now, that right there would allow for even this to exist, this kind of a vehicle right here to even exist. And for the most part, you can, let's just start and say they're just drone style fins and wings. Yeah, so if you really wanted to, you can get this thing to go forward fast enough and then open up another wing that can come out of this just to allow for maximum maximum movement. And your car can take you as far as you would need to. There's other ways to maximize on a lot of things. I'm waiting for people to start maximizing on inductance and stuff like that. So when these vehicles become electrical, there's a lot of ways to collect inductance, which is the way to have a spinning magnet or something spinning around a magnet and getting the coil to move electrons. That's all it is. And when you get inductance going, it's another way to save a little bit of energy. So ways for motors and engines to be able to save more energy and power through multiple processes and capacitors and magnets. If we all move things properly, we'll get more maximization is what I'm saying. So eventually our power supplies are going to be able to go a lot further. So we'll be able to move something like a vehicle a lot easier real soon. And that's where I'm looking at this saying flying car right there. So once that happens, once power is a usable source, is when we're going to be able to fly. And that's going to be very soon. Like I said, maximizing all these things through all these machines that everyone's got right now. It's just nothing more than making the right gearing setup, really, and you can make anything really possible. So everyone's kind of on that line right now and creating unique things and amazing things. My thing is eventually you're just going to have people wanting to go further and further, and once the power supply allows them to go further and further, they're going to just want to say, hey, wouldn't it be neat if our RV can do it? Now, once you have yourself an RV, you got yourself a regular rectangular RV. Now you can really say, I'm going to be able to dice this up in another way. So I'm going to be able to dice up my RV now in a whole nother way. Let's just put 4 of these power supplies, future power supplies, over on each corner. And for the most part, you don't need to have it. Rectangular is good, but you're going to have the ability to really kind of, maybe even not go that way with it. Let's go the other way. You're almost going to want to bowl it out like this. And I think I have a reason for that. Because once you get yourself to this, you're going to be able to upgrade to 4 power supplies and do a lot more. And when that happens, you're going to be able to put just enough universe of Earth on you to be able to say, I'm going to now be able to have a garden, put the proper fence up, and I got myself a nice bee fence right here. Get some chickens in there. Get a goat or 2. I mean, this thing here doesn't need to go fast, ever. It flies while you sleep. You just tell it where to go. FAA regulations have you set. You're lined in with a whole bunch of other 3D mapping that sends you along the same path as any other plane. Now you get yourself a vehicle that is going along with the planes and other things. Now that's going to be eliminating, of course, that, but this is going to be a larger market as far as I'm concerned. People are going to be able to link up in caravans, go the distances, share things while they're moving type stuff, where there's going to be markets in flight. Now there's going to be unusable area is going to become usable area real soon. So market ways along paths over the Atlantic and the Pacific, where essentially there's nothing there. So if that is the case and there is nothing there, that means for the most part there's safety in the fact that if governments really don't want people flying over unique military operations, which I totally understand, I really do. It's the way it is. There's some places they want to have for safety's sake. Then if you can say, hey, we're going to be making these paths right here a lot more usable, so get out to the ocean, travel the ocean path. And for the most part, you're going to be able to have a large enough highway of these style living conditions and people flying that you're going to have anything that goes wrong. I'm going to say for the most part, these vehicles are going to be floatable like a plane is. The planes are meant to be flotation devices for the most part. If they crash, they're going to, for the most part, float. That's going to be these vehicles as well. So if a situation starts to arise, this vehicle is going to be able to probably go down and land and set up a beacon that would say, hey, come help, and something would help. So I'm going to look at these and say there's going to be just a larger area for a bigger highway that's going to cut a lot of area. And they're all over the world, Sahara deserts and all these other places where you're going to probably be able to fly straight over the top of these areas where nothing really exists to really bug or bother anybody. So once again, flying like that is going to be how I conceive it. Now, once again, on the political side of things, how do you actually have people who have their homes with them going to other countries? You have your home with you. Are you paying taxes now when you fly into their area? Because now you can just land for what? You float in the ocean. I mean, there's got to be some regulations and rules as to what can then come from this. So what I'm saying is I start from a simple car that you're going to probably have a pretty simple car setup. I'm going to say a dual engine setup. I want to get a lot better with my drawings on these. I'm just goofing really for the most part. But you know, these, like I said, these things can be waterproof bottomed. Why not? Kind of lightly flotacious. Why not? Why not allow for them to go the distance of, if they have the ability to just park on the ocean and it takes them 12 hours to refill a power cell, 8 hours to refill a power cell by sitting in the middle of the ocean and opening up some solar arrays. I mean, if it's part of a highwaying process, wouldn't it allow for, I mean, being from Hawaii wouldn't be an issue anymore when they're always talking about, oh, it's so hard to be a part of the trades system where you're not getting things the same. I mean, you can just be part of the trades system and in a lot easier way. And a lot of other places that are harder to get to will be a lot easier to once again get to. So I'm looking at, you know, going the distance with not having to worry as much, but at the same time having to have a political infrastructure set in place before this can even happen. That's what I want to talk about, is how does this actually happen. So through my further future episodes coming up, I'm going to be delving into more ideas. This is just right now talking about transportation. I know this looks a little goofy when you're looking at it like this, but for the most part, I'm looking at these and saying, if this is your living, if this right here, I'm going to do a real quick on this, is just a standard RV, which doesn't have to be. I'm looking at these, really, I want to really delve into it, because these could be the simplest things as being metal cubes that you just start bringing walls together, and inside the walls there's already pre-plumbing, piping for wiring and everything else that you need. With that, you just square them up, close it off, and at the very beginning, I think that the core of all these vehicles should be the power supply and like I said, the 3D printer style setup. I think a lot of these, for the bigger ones, I think you can also have yourself set up with your own medical center. Why not? Your own place, your own universe. It's you. It's totally you. Your own vehicle, your own setup. So with that, you would have your power supply, 3D printer, and then above, you know, around there somewhere, you would have a medical center, which means if you have a family, you can give birth to this thing. That sounds crazy. But then on top of it, if you ever have to have a organ or an appendix out, this machine will be able to do this for you. So floating anywhere, you're pretty much safe. You will be able to handle anything. During this pandemic we have going on right now, I'm looking at it and saying, quarantining people would be easy by saying, if you are infected, take your vehicle, please, and just, there's quarantine zones, and they are in the ocean, but we have a large area set up for you. There's going to be medical bays, things to do, but you know, you can move things to different areas away, and it wouldn't even be an issue. It'd be more like, oh, I'm in my home. Who cares? I go over here. Yeah, I got this. Medical personnel will come and show up and dock and take care of everybody. And for the most part, it would be kind of a safety of being able to feel relaxed in your own home, but in a very safe place. So I'm thinking there's ways to do this and have it. It's tough because with I just jumped around a lot to even quarantining. I still want to say, how do we get people up in the air and moving and flying the way we all saw, come on, we all saw Back to the Future. Almost everybody did. This part 2, come on, that was insane. Cars flying, I want that. We all want that. But it's not doable until we really think about saying, am I willing to, here's the big deal, am I willing to give up my vehicle rights to the vehicle? Saying, vehicle, take me to LA, and you turn around and you join your crowd of people in your car. Hi. You know what I mean? And then and then in case of emergency, then your car will give you maybe partial control. I don't know. But that's the only way it would work, because you can't be flying out into zones that are not where you're allowed to be. You'd have people going to secret bases all over the world trying to, ooh, I'm going to fly in under the tree level. I mean, come on, there's going to have to be ways to not have that happen before they let us fly. So everyone remember that. You can't just fly until there's a way to say where you can and can't go, and you won't go there. Like right now, they do have a decent lockdown on where we can't go. And we all know it. There's little areas that if anyone wants to go down that rabbit hole and find where you can and can't go, there are places you cannot go. There are areas you can't fly in and around. Like there's literally in the 3-dimensional space of the sky, there are little tubes you have to fly through in certain areas because they don't want you in certain areas. The envelope. Flight envelope, where you can and can't go, where you don't go over here. This is all red zone over here. So once you come into it, they're gonna send off things to stop you. So as long as we as people take the rights kind of a little bit out of our hands and say, okay, I'm willing to say, take me to LA car, and it just takes me there on its path. May S-curve me around some of the map. But that's fine. I don't mind S-curving around the map with the convenience of being able to hop in my car from LA and say, take me to New York, and know you're going to get there in about, 8 hours, 6 hours. Flight time, moving. So I'm looking at that and saying those kind of things would be the niceties. Hopping in your car, bedding down for the night, and waking up in another country. Wouldn't that be a thing? That's what I'm wanting. But of course, then with what's happening right now in our world, that's a big issue. We can just say, oh, how do you lock it down? If people can now fly, do you just stop in the middle as you're flying over and they say lockdown? Everybody stops in the middle of their ocean and they have to just suddenly turn back around? I don't know. We'll have to figure that out. With this, there's a lot to think about, but I also want to keep going into the future. We're not over, we're only moving to the future. And I think if we go this way, there's a whole nother way to look at the future as well. So, I'm going to say, I'm at an end for today. I want to keep this at about a half hour shows on these ones. But at the same time, the next one I'm going to be talking about is a little more on the city side of living, because this is what I would call the sovereignty side of living, which there's going to be a portion of people that would like to do that. But I'd have to say, if they want to be sovereign like this, they'd probably have to be a part of a trade union or something like that. You'd have to go through some sort of sovereigntyism class. So it would have to be to show, here's what, in order to do this, you would have to be on the top roof of your little flying mojig here. You would have to be growing some sort of crop, eggs, chickens, something. But once again, if that's the case, now you can be sovereign. You can be on this forever flight, or else then you're going to have to be more part of a vehicle-based setup. So there's ways to make it to where, there's different levels of being able to have these, the autonomy of being, I guess, fully free, sovereign, but once again, part of a trade union, guild, I don't know, but something would have to happen. We'll discuss that in future times. Right now, I want to end with transportation This is one form of it, the sovereignty form of transportation right now, where you would have more of a RV style, live in your own apartment that flies style living, where you can maybe be part of a learning union. There you go. Education would now be literally a form of true money making. Like, hey, there's no ways to really get to a weird location. If you have the right vehicle that said, hey, you can land in these really deep forested areas because you have a very unique vehicle that can handle it, has a small footprint, it has good scanners, it will be able to make sure it doesn't land on anything dangerous, and then you can sit there as a vehicle in your house and really send out drones. I don't know, send out small little robots that can go out and really study these areas in such a ways that we can actually start to learn more about our planet. And then you would be getting research hours. So many people for so many areas. That way we can have people then spreading out a lot more in a very unique way, one that is for the nature, for the planet. Then that would be the smaller layer of people moving outwardly, but being able to also pick up and leave as well. So that way we put plumbing in the ground. We don't mess around. We make sure that the earth is tasting our feet all day long. So I'm just looking at it like, not from a outwardly hyper-minded individual toward this, but I'm just saying it would be so neat for industry to be able to have us take care of ourselves through a manufacturing style of thinking, which would be more like it would be for us to create our own design for reals. Some people would want to be sovereign, but not everybody would. Really, not everybody would. As a matter of fact, I think less would want to be sovereign than more. Sovereignty would be a freedom that is a little too deep, and would probably come with a lot of paperwork involved and stuff like that. So once again, it'd be a lot of people probably rather living in a hyper city to smaller city layout, where we are a pack people, so a pack animal, pack people, pack creature. We like to be in groups. So once again, there'd be the groups that would probably like to be in societies that are just a little more natural minded, but big scale. We've seen the Star Treks and the Star Wars and all the other ones where the society looks like it's kind of joined in with the world at this point and kind of was working in a unique togetherness. So that's where I'm saying is we don't need to have a 1 for 10 ratio on, we give 1 and we take 10 out, it's kind of like we have to just be like a little more thought. Our thought needs to be a little bit more toward how can we not have excess, but just enough. So that's my way of thinking. So I'm starting off with transportation. We'll move to cities. And then from cities, I want to start thinking about politics. I want to start writing some stuff and getting some ideas just written up. And just the more goofier fact of, let's just call this a unique sci-fi movie. How does that sound? We're creating a unique sci-fi movie, and this movie is called The Future World. Anything's possible. So this is not what it looks like, but what it looks like. You have a vehicle right here, 2 engines, engine 1, engine 2 of the circle, cab, if you can see it, kind of like the head area here, downward. It doesn't really need to have a direction, front or back, can be either way. And it's going to be one that is going to have the capability to, for the most part, just take me to LA, turn back around and enjoy your conversation with your family, your friends. Nothing. Kick your feet up. For the most part, I think take a nap. That's the way I want this to be. Take a nap. Let this be the moment that you get to enjoy for now. That's the way these things should be, and I think they can be that way. Yeah, we can have fans, big fans, so they would be like big drones. Or We can also, you know, I mean, we could have big drone fan looking things. This is the earlier one I was drawing, where you have a bunch of like drone fans around a circular structure or an entity, or not an entity, a structure or a mechanism. So some form of a circular engineering platform where I'm looking at this and just saying, just like I said, these just square sheets that can go up, boom, boom, boom. So this would be like a, you know, 8-sided to finish a full circle around, and then you have a nice bottom, top. And then you can extend these. You can extend each one of those wings out from there. If this thing has an energy source that allows for you to actually move pretty freely, then why not have it to where you could extend rooms off for family members? I don't know. Just thinking it out. Okay, everybody. Enjoy the goodness of the day. I kind of went to a couple of different places with this. This was my earlier drawing from a power supply square in the center, 3D printer on the outside, up above it, that can print anything. When I say anything, I mean really anything. You have to think about that. Really anything. You'd be able to say printer or computer. I'm looking for a new cell phone. I'm looking for a new part. The machine right here, our vehicle that's flying, is calling for a stress point fracture over here in a part that needs to be fixed. Printer would look at it and say you need to have X amount of this, X amount of this, X amount of this, and then the part can be made. So it makes you your part for your stressed out vehicle. You can land, fix said vehicle, stress relieve, do a diagnostic check, you're off and going safely. Take that part, toss it back into the hopper, grinds it back up again. You now have those parts back into it. So nothing gets wasted, nothing gets lost, everything gets kind of cycled back through its own. A couple things you would have to get for certain things. All of a sudden you say, hey, I would really like to have the new G.I. Joe or the new toy, the new Power Ranger, and you don't have enough plastic, then you can go to a place where this would be the place you'd go. Instead of having these large super centers like the larger stores, you would just have these larger warehouses full of just bulk material that you would then put into your hopper, pay your price of whatever the price may be. I still know there's going to be multiple banking setups, multiple banking structures, multiple societal structures, multiple ways to pay for things, credits, coin, full-on straight-up money, cash. Many different ways to be running this new future society, and I think that if we all get together and start discussing this, we'll be able to look at it and say, what it is we are willing to compromise with, and that's it. Equilibrium, not equality. We can never have equality. We can have equilibrium. Some things weigh more inside the jar, which put things out of balance. But when you notice they all start to get to a point, that's the balance it wants to be at. It looks like it's offset, but it's really not. There's just weight in different places that require this level of equilibrium. So we need to find our equilibrium with ourselves, with our society, with what people are asking for and what we need to be giving. So when it comes down to all this, we need to go through our society with the idea of equilibrium and balance. Cool, everybody. I'm going to call this one the day. I have a buddy calling me up right now. So enjoy the goodness of the day. I am out. Peace.